Do you want a simple way on how to start your seeds? In this video, I'm going to show you how simple and easy it is to start plants from seeds. Hi, this is Jeremy Stark here from Green Thumb Gardener, here to give you some tips, tutorials, and reviews for all your gardening needs. In today's video, we're going to continue on with our seed starting series that we do have, as far as showing you the different techniques and the tips that you can to actually get started with vegetable growing. But this is a great way if you want to try different varieties of plants that they don't have in there. Starting from seed is just the best way to do it. And you're basically in control of this whole process, and it will really help kind of up your game as far as gardening. So I'm going to try to break it down as easy as I can for you, and something that you can just take action with it. You can just get the materials that you need for it. So the other videos that I do have, I'll link them up in the show notes, and I'll also have something that will pop up on here. But before we get started, if you do find this content helpful, please give us a green thumbs up and let us know that we're making great content for you. Also, if you could, please hit that subscribe button down below. That really helps us out to get known, as far as getting our videos out there, and that way then you get notified of any new videos that we do have. Also, we do have a website, and I'll put the link right down there in the show notes. That website will have all of our information as far as starting seeds from scratch or just any kind of vegetable, saving seeds. Let's get started with it. So, in the other videos, I did go over basically how to make my seed starting mix. But like I said, you can start in that video. I did say that you can go to the store and buy the actual mix that they have in there, and most of the time it's going to be comprised of peat moss and some sort of vermiculite or maybe perlite, it helps to absorb the water and keep the water content in there. And then it may have some balancing, like just some balancing in there to make it a neutral base. So I just make a very simple neutral base for the medium that I use for planting seeds. So just so you know, the equipment that we have, I did go over that as well in another video, but just to kind of recap what it is. So you're going to need some kind of seed starting tray. Now you can find these in Home Depot. They're very, the ones that they have in there are kind of flimsy. I still have a bunch of them, but they break very easily. So I still have them, I still use them, but the ones that I really prefer are, they're a little bit more sturdy. So as you can see, these are pretty sturdy. And when you start filling this up with dirt and you get it water, and if you have to move it around, you want to have something that's gonna, kind of last a little bit longer. So this thing's gonna last a while. I'll put what I use in the show notes so that you know what we have. The other thing that you need to have is a tray, and these are also very sturdy as well. I don't know if I can put this in here, but just to give you an idea, this thing holds up. And I got, maybe about 2 gallons full of dirt in here. And this thing is definitely holding on. My other ones, I wouldn't even bother doing that because that thing would just fall apart. They're the 5 by, I think they're by 12. Let me see, 4, I'm counting right now. 5 by 10, actually. So you get about 50 plants in this. Now, I know what you're thinking, like, do I really need 50 plants? Well, sure you do. Why not? Get as many plants as you can in this space. Now, if you're just kind of starting out in a small thing, a small garden, you might maybe just stick with the ones that you find in Home Depot, and that's plenty. There's even, I think there's 72 in here. After each year, I do clean these out. I rinse them out really well, and then I do add a little disinfectant to it. I put a little bit of vinegar, and I do spray it in there. It just kind of helps keep it so that there's nothing lying around from last year. And then I also, if it still looks dirty after that, when I do get started, I'll rinse it out again. But that's pretty much all I do. You just basically want to get rid of anything that's been hanging around, like some spores or anything that could cause problems later on. But one of the things that we're going to do is going to really take care of all of that anyway, so it's not going to have to worry too much about it. And now all we're going to do is we're going to fill everything up. So this is basically all I do, is I just fill it right up. This is like my favorite part of the year. I love all aspects of the garden, but I love just creating things. I love just being a part of that. It's really just, it makes it feel very special to do these kinds of things. I don't know, just something about growing things, it just helps me. So I'm just trying to fill this whole thing up, and I just want to get it level. So it might take a little bit. I'll kind of fast forward the video so you don't have to see this whole thing through. If you're using the ones that I use and you're filling up your own, so you want to just basically get it, they're pretty much the soil all in there. You don't have to really pack it down too much, because one of the other steps that we'll do will kind of make it a little bit compact, and then at that point you can make it a little cut, because you want to have it so it is a little compact, because it'll make it easier when eventually you take these out and you actually, basically take them out so that you can take the roots and you can transplant them into another container. So if you're using these two as well, these are going to be kind of the same. You want to fill this up. The other options that you might see in the store are the one I'm not going to use these now, but they're these little plugs that you do have. So if you do have some of these right here, we're going to basically go over the steps as far as getting these. But we're going to be doing the same thing with it. But if you do have these particular plugs, and these are just like little compressed, it's kind of the same medium as this. It's got mostly peat moss and some other stuff in it, but it's basically just compressed into a nice little kind of plug. So now that we have all the dirt in here and everything's all nice and done in here, what we're going to do now is an important step that you want to take, and we'll go get, and I'll show you the next step. But we're basically going to take very hot water and we're going to pour it all in the actual medium. Now that's going to do two different things. First that it's going to do is that it's going to it's going to get some moisture in here, because we do want to have it somewhat wet when we do plant the seeds in here, because that really helps to germinate. The other thing it does is that it will actually kill off anything that's in the soil itself, because it is very, but either way, that's going to kill off anything that's kind of floating around in the soil, or maybe that's in there, just so you can get started with it. All right, so once you get all your dirt in here again, you're going to water it, and this is going to be as hot of water that you can get it. I mean, you can have boiling water, but it's not, I don't find that it's really necessary to do that, but you want to have some hot water, because you do want to kill off all the little nasties that are in there. So I just get this whole thing nice and wet. And obviously you want to put the tray underneath it, because there's going to be water that's going to come out of it at the bottom there. So if you're using the plugs, like I said, you definitely want to, that one I would probably use boiling water with the heat of that for it, but that's going to help activate these particular ones. So just follow the directions that they have on their particular the particular kit that you get, and they'll tell you the best way to do that. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of the game plan for this. You may want to grow some peppers, some tomatoes, some Swiss chard, maybe some other vegetables that you want to get out to your garden. So now it depends on how many that you want to actually have. So that's why you got to kind of have a little plan of where you want to plant everything, because when you get a lot of seeds in here and a lot of plants in here, if you don't know where they are, you're not going to know what the plant is. I mean, you're not going to know it unless you're really familiar with these plants, which I'm familiar with them, and I would get them confused. So you really have to have some type of labeling for this. Now, I recommend just regular labels that you get at the store. They're just these plain, like little white ones that you can do. You can get fancy ones and everything else. You can even just get like little popsicle sticks and write it on there. But you need to do something to be able to tell what the plant is and what the seed is. So make sure that you do have some way of knowing that, labeling it. You can reuse these over and over again. But when you also get into different varieties of the different plants, like I plant tons and tons of tomatoes, different varieties of tomato plants. So I'm gonna wanna know which one is which. So what I like to do is, the other way you can get, as complicated as you want, but you can build almost like a little graph of what you have in your tray, and then you can number it, and you kind of have a numbering system that will show you in each one, which row and all that stuff, what you're planting in there. So that way there, you know exactly the variety. That's the way I do it. I'm one of those, I do like to have a chart for this, even though I'm more of a simple gardener, and I don't want to have anything too complicated. But in this particular method that I do, it's really important to know the exact variety. But find whatever works for you. So you may not, that might be too complicated for you. Just have like one row and say that's like tomatoes, and this one is like peppers, or whatever, or herbs or whatever else you have in here. So I would just, try to keep to something that you're actually going to do year in, year out, and you can always adapt, change it, and things like that. So just be aware that you want to have some way of knowing what you're going to be planting in these particular things right here. So we got I'm going to use these seeds right here. I did a review of these actual seeds. These are still going. I got these a couple years ago. They're still very good. I'll post a link up on there about the review I did for this particular variety. But they're just some regular seeds in here. So today we're going to plant. It's still a little cold out here. I'm not ready to go ahead and plant my tomatoes. So I'm going to actually plant some broccoli and some cabbage. So what you want to do is just get your seeds out. Now, there's a few different ways that you can do this, and when you're planting this. You can actually plant a couple in each pod of the same variety. The reason why you want to plant maybe two or three is you want to make sure that they germinate. And what germination means is that the plant actually sprouts from the seed and it starts forming, and then it'll form the actual leaves that it has. So you want to have a couple in there just in case some of them don't germinate, because sometimes the seeds are, they might not sprout, and you don't want to be stuck with trying to do one and one of them doesn't, that one doesn't sprout. So do a couple. If you're fairly new and you're not really sure, do like 5 or 6. I mean, well, the only thing that you're gonna have with when you do a lot is you're gonna find that it's gonna be when you do it, you're gonna have to basically work with what you have in there. So I'm just gonna do 2 in each pod. Okay, and all I'm doing is I'm basically just placing it right on the top, and I try to place it, somewhere in the middle, because when I pop these out later, it just makes it a little bit easier. All right, so I'm gonna just do 1 row, and that's gonna be my broccoli. So I'm gonna put the rest of the seeds back in here. All right, and then the other row I'm gonna do cabbage in there. So now you might be wondering why is it so small? How are these things going to grow? Well, believe it or not, they don't need a lot of space when they're first starting out. They're gonna basically do fine in here, but the next step after we get these guys going in here, and when they've had a chance to somewhat grow, is we're gonna put them in their own little home that's gonna grow a little bit further before we actually put it out into the garden. So that this basically is kind of like the first kind of way that the plant opens up and is ready for our particular garden. It's really the first step that you want to take, as far as, getting it to germinate. So then once you actually have it in here, I just like to just sift over just a little bit of this right here, and then I just kind of pack it down a little bit. Now on the seeds, you'll see that it'll say, it'll say the planting depth and everything. Some of the seeds you might want to plant a little bit, like if you have a bigger seed that you're going to be transplanting, like watermelon is a pretty big one. You want, or sunflower, you want to get a little bit more dirt on this, but these are I'm just going to wait till they sprout. So I'm not going to put too much of this medium on here. I just want enough that it's going to cover it so that when I do water, it just doesn't float away. All right. And I almost forgot which one I did here. So I did the first row, I did broccoli. So I'm gonna put broccoli on here. And you know, if you have this particular type of broccoli that I have in this packet is the Calabrese broccoli, which is a good variety if you've never heard of it. All right, so I'm gonna keep it simple. The first row is my broccoli, and the second row is the cabbage. And this particular cabbage is red acre cabbage. I don't think I've grown that one yet. Red acre cabbage. All right. So that way there, I know what those are. So then the next you want to do is you actually want to just take it and you want to water it so that okay, so now that you have everything watered in and you have the actual plants labeled what you have, the next step, what you want to do is you want to get this into a kind of an ideal environment for the plant to germinate. So what you can do is some of the kits that you have, they're going to have a dome that you can put over the actual plants. Let me see if this one actually, if I have it handy right here. So it's basically a dome. It's just almost like a plastic little dome thing. So if you had your labels and everything, you know, maybe you may want to do something with that. But you can put this over it. You know, you can actually just put this over it. And what that does is that keeps in the moisture, so you don't have to actually wet it all the time. You don't have to keep it wet. You want it because you do want to keep it moist in the little pods in here. The other option you can do too is you can just take actual saran wrap and just basically just cut off enough of the saran wrap and you place it right over the actual seeds. I like to do that. It's pretty simple. I have a piece of plastic that I use that they're just made for like garbage bags, and I usually just place them right over it so that it's not so that it does keep in the moisture, and it kind of gives it like almost like a greenhouse dome effect for it. So if you have something with a kit, you can use that and just place it right over it. They have ones that you can get too. I just don't really find them useful. I don't really use those, but they have the other domes that they're a little bit bigger. The next thing you want to do is you actually want to place these in an area that it's going to be somewhat warm, because most of the seeds they're gonna require some type of a warmer environment that's going to allow the seeds to germinate. That signals to the plant seed to actually start sprouting in there. For the different plants that you have, they do have different germination rate. It will take longer, or you know, it's the amount of time that it takes for the plant to actually start sprouting in there. What you can usually do is look on the back of the seed packet, or if you want, you can also look on my website. I have all that information on there as well. But they'll have your actual the days and times that it'll take for the seed to typically germinate. Now that means that you know, there can be varies of a few days to a week. You know, it could really just vary, you know, a few days because of, you know, maybe a little bit warmer. But what I find is that if it's a little bit warmer, then you know, you have that bottom heat to it, that it usually speeds up the time that it will actually germinate. But if for some reason you don't have that, I would just place it near a very sunny spot, or maybe closer to a heating source. Like if it's kind of near your heating vent or something, that would probably be a good spot if you can get it right there so that it's really warm. You don't want to put it in a really cold room, or I have everything in my garage, but you know, I use the heating pad, so that really still gets everything going. So really that's the next step for it. So in the next video that I'm going to do, you'll actually see what I do next after the seeds have been sprouted, and we'll show you basically how to get them into the actual pot. Also, I do want to say that we're going to have also another video that's going to be similar to this, but it's going to show you another technique. So as always, if you do like this video, please give us a green thumbs up. Also, if you could, hit that subscribe button down below. That way you can get notice of all the videos that we do have. Also, take a look at our website down there in the description, and that's always going to have, you know, just some tips and everything like that as well that you can take a look at. So, and as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.